Jeff, tell us, what's the name of your podcast and why are you excited to be here?
My podcast is called Classic Conversations. I'm excited to be here because I just love meeting people like you and networking and kind of just meeting people, like you said, that I have only known as little AVIs.
Yeah, right?
Full-fledged people. They're full-fledged people. It's incredible.
What is up, action takers? Welcome back to the After Hours Entrepreneur. I'm really excited to share this interview here with you today that was completed at PodFest. Super fun, point and shoot style. I just posted up at the bottom of a very busy place in the conference hall, and I just started interviewing some awesome people, and I think you're going to be thrilled to hear how these people are turning their passion into profit. Stay tuned, sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's get into this episode of the After Hours Entrepreneur. Run the tape. Here with Jeff Dwoskin at PodFest. Jeff, how are we doing?
Oh, we're doing great. So good to be here.
Yeah, awesome.
Nice to meet you in person.
Yeah, right. We're Clubhouse homies from back in the day, and so it's really good to see you in person, live here at the event. Jeff, tell us, what's the name of your podcast and why are you excited to be here?
My podcast is called Classic Conversations. I'm excited to be here because I just love meeting people like you and networking and kind of just meeting people, like you said, that I have only known as little AVIs.
Yeah, right?
Full-fledged people. They're full-fledged people. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool being able to connect, meet people in real life in a post-pandemic world. What's the goal of your show? Who do you speak to?
I speak to people who love classic TV, classic films, comedians. I like to think of it as I grew up loving watching Entertainment Weekly, and I just devour like any entertainment news. And so the opportunity to kind of speak to people on classic shows like Isaac, Gopher, Doc from Love Boat, and like Mrs. C from Happy Days, and just comedians that I've worked with over the last 20 years as a professional comedian. It's just super fun to be able to kind of connect with them, hear their story. Because the interesting thing I found is everyone's got this one story, this one thing that set them on a path that turned them into who we know who we know as who they are. Just like one thing, like Anthony Williams, Potsy, a janitor. He was working with a janitor, and they gave him advice that changed his life. It's just, well, I say that because it's like interesting because you never know who it's going to come from. You think it's like that rich millionaire you're going to bump into or whatever, but it's anyone who has just the right information for you at the right time in your life.
Timing is definitely everything. That's a good point. I mean, there's a guy at my men's group. He was texting me all the time these words of encouragement. 99% of the time, it's like, okay, great. But that 1% of the time, it can definitely make a difference.
Oh,
Jeff,
yeah.
I do want to segue a little bit to business. The show is all about turning your passion to profit. So tell me, how do you turn your podcast into income and revenue? How does that work?
Well, great question. Sorry about coughing. Great question. Originally, I was going to do a whole social media type thing because that's my background is a product guy, digital entrepreneur. But then as I got into the podcast, that became more fun and entertainment focused. I have a second business called Stampede Social that I built a whole kind of suite of tools that help podcasters or any kind of brand or anything kind of drive content and all that kind of stuff. And so I've kind of taken what I've learned from podcasting, adapted it to this new business to help people kind of drive their message out there and use the social media is better. Because I always found that, working with agencies and stuff like that, there's so many things you can't do. And so we kind of help make them easier for people.
So is the podcast more of like a networking play? It allows you to get access to more people, or is it a lead magnet? Like, how does it convert into your social media services?
Part of what I do on Twitter is a thing called #Roundup. We've been doing it since 2015. It's an app, and we sort of organically we create trends. So like since 2015, we've created over 8,000 trends, top 10 US trends, and it's all organic and it's really fun. So part of the show is I read tweets from different games that we've done because we've done over 10,000, and I always pick one that sort of ties in with the theme or a theme for my episode. And then I use that on social media to kind of do that. So that's how I kind of tie people in. It's more subtle. I don't overly sell that. And then #Roundup is part of this other company.
Yeah, it's kind of like a attention PR type of play, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Right. It just kind of, ties together, just get interest. Hit start to have a conversation. You can point to it. You can.
Do you create clips from your episodes as well? So is it kind of like the social media Twitter piece into a podcast, then back to social media to kind of create?
I haven't, because honestly, I've never been 100% convinced that I love like the headliner stuff and all that, but that people listening to part of your podcast drives them to the podcast.
Yeah.
I've always struggled with that. And when I first started doing it, I would do something unique to drive people to that episode. Like I would talk, or I would have my guest record something during the interview and then play that. But I never saw a huge lift from it.
So I think that's a really good point, Jeff. And I the most common advice when people say, how do I grow my podcast, is, well, share stuff on social media. But what ends up happening is you end up just selling these dumb little business cards that nobody cares about. But to me, the best way to leverage the podcast is a tool to grow your social media. It's like the inverse,
Right.
because if you're able to create interesting content off of your podcast, well, then it helps provide value to your short form audience, because you're right. Very hard to drive traffic from Instagram to iTunes.
Yeah, it's really hard, especially with the whole link in bio and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so
How many times have you clicked the link in bio?
nobody does. And like,
nobody's doing it.
but that's why we built Stampede Social. We built the whole thing. So from the actual post itself, you can reply. Like if you go to my podcast at Jeff Dwoskin Show, for example, you reply, it'll say, hey, reply below hashtag episode 132. And then you receive a DM from me with a link to that episode. And the cool thing is I know I sent it to you, Mark. I know that link went to you because it's a custom URL. It's not generic URLs. And so over time, I can understand who's requesting the most, which episodes are the most popular, et cetera, et cetera. But it works with any content because it's frustrating. Link in bio is the most frustrating because it's a many-to-one relationship. And unless it's the last post, link in bio is kind of.
Yeah. I do get pretty good conversions from my email list, but yeah, the link in bio, I don't think it works. I do like that Instagram has allowed us to, share links in our stories, even under the 10,000 follower mark. I think that's relevant, but it's hard to determine your traffic.
Right.
I mean, I guess there's ways to do it.
Well, it's funny you say that about the mailing list. I agree 100%. Email is king, and I think it will remain king because social media, as we've seen, can, Vine, gone, right? I mean, people lost entire revenue streams, right? MySpace, for those of you who remember MySpace, was the biggest thing ever. How we feel about Twitter or Instagram now. And a lot of people listening right now probably don't even know what that is.
Oh, it was everything.
Right. And it was everything. And being in your top 8, biggest deal ever, right? And so the technology that we built actually was originally because of the third-party cookies going away, which they're going away in a year, is when I say drives to your episode, it could drive anywhere. It can drive to any place to collect first name, email, email. And so that first-party data so that you can market out to people in multiple ways. Because that's the other crazy thing about social media. When you post something, only the people that are around are ever seeing it. With email, you can hit them multiple ways. So it's important to build up email and social media. But social media is all about timing. If you're not on, you don't see my post, you miss that post. But email, you're going to get the email.
So. And text is kind of coming to be the big one too. But I agree 100%. Email's where I get most of the traffic, I would say.
Yeah.
It is direct traffic.
If you can build up a good email list, that's gold.
Which is hard.
Yeah.
Which is hard. By the way, if you're new to email lists, you might feel bad when people, discontinue or unsubscribe. But I think that, if people aren't unsubscribing every time you send out an email, you're probably doing something wrong.
Right. Yeah. People they don't lose interest in you. They just, it's no longer right for them at that moment in time. And so they may have been around for years, and then it's just like, you know.
Don't feel bad about it. Send out the emails. So, Jeff, why don't you tell everyone out there your name, the name of your podcast, and why you love PodFest?
All right. Jeff Dwoskin, Classic Conversations. You can find it at jeffisfunny.com. I love PodFest because I love meeting everyone. It's just so great to meet people in person. And I tell you, every session I go in, I hear at least one thing, that can really change the way I do things moving forward. And it only takes that one thing. It only takes that one thing to really kind of make a huge difference. And there's people here who I've listened to previous PodFests, them do previous presentations that changed the course of my podcast who don't even know it. So it's just amazing how you can touch people's lives you don't even know. I have to find those people and thank them. But
100%. Podcasting can oftentimes feel like a solo. You're on your own island, but it's cool to be at an event like Rapid fire questions. You ready?
Sure.
Favorite animal?
Dog.
Most popular answer. Love it. Scariest movie you've ever seen?
Poltergeist, the original.
Oh, gee, terrifying.
It still scares me to this day.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. If you're going on an airplane flight, first class, of course, nothing but the best for Jeff. You're on an airplane flight. Who would you love to share a seat next to you?
That's a great question. Steven Spielberg, I think, would be right up there.
I like that one. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what do you say?
What do you say? Just believe in yourself. That's it. I mean, I think it's self-confidence. It's like the self-talk. Just work past it. You're better than you give yourself credit for. So
love it. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the After Hours Entrepreneur. So many great people out there taking action. And I love sharing their stories with people just like you. And listen, if you're into podcasting, if you're trying to grow your podcast into something that can actually generate real revenue and real profit, let me help you. That's what I'm here to do. I've been working on this for over 5 years now, and I want to help you turn your podcast into profit. Click the link below and join the Podcast Mastermind community. It is very affordable, and it's designed to help you turn your podcast into money, into cash money. That's what we're going to help you do. So listen, click the link below. Let's connect. Thanks for listening to the After Hours Entrepreneur today. And I'll catch you here next time. Go take action, all right? Peace.